Webster, fish habitat coordinator.
Go ahead, Carrie.
Carrie, I'm Assistant Chief of Fisheries Management Division. Andrea, Northwest Habitat Biologist.
Jennifer Danville, Southwest Habitat Biologist.
Ross Lorenzen, Northeast Habitat Biologist.
Bob Nordstrom, citizen, Albuquerque.
Charles Shaw, hydrologist here for the field office, BLM.
Pedro Varela, wildlife biologist for Rio Puerto, BLM.
Yep, I'm Trevor Wallen and I'm the assistant field manager for Renewable Resources Division of BLM Rio Puerto office.
Jack Marquetti with Game and Fish, aquatic riparian habitat specialist.
Sam Reese, I'm the Threatened and Endangered Species Program in New Mexico, I would state office. I mean, but I'm the fisheries program lead for the U.S. Forest Service.
Go ahead, Della.
I'm Della Joyner, I'm the Northern PIM for Game.
And I'm super happy to have Della here because as my inaugural meeting facilitation, she's gonna be back up on all technical issues, so. Yeah, fortunately, when glitches come up, she'll help us troubleshoot. Yeah, so just gonna quick run through the agenda. We've got a 2-day meeting. We're hoping to be wrapped up today by about 4:30, get us through maybe half of the presentations. If you looked at the agenda, you see we have a couple business items, including going over minutes from last meeting. This is a new thing, but we'll do that. And then tomorrow we'll have a couple other business items, sandwiching some of the presentations. So thank you all for being here, and tuning in as well. And big thanks to all of our partners who have helped us work on these projects, especially given the work climate that they're in right now. We're pretty pleased with having been able to build some good packages with them. So with that, the agenda item of approving the meeting minutes. I don't know if you all have had a chance to review, but if there's any discussion or suggested changes at this point, we could talk about that. Somebody want to
Move to
vote?
approve.
Okay,
I'll second that.
great. Been approved. That was easy. Next up is just a quick status update on previously prioritized projects, and so I'll hand it over to Corey here to update you all on the fish side of things.
Yeah, so from last year, we completed the Whitewater Creek Habitat Restoration Project, so that is complete. Looks really good, so they just need more water, so it'd be a lot better if there's water in there. They did stock the area with Gila trout, and I got word that, you know, it was being utilized a lot, and kids were catching pretty big Gila trout out of those pools that we created in riffles. And then the water dried up down in that area. So, but everything worked out really well, completed really fast, and we didn't have any issues on that, so. Completed and all done. And then we used some of the funds, we're using some of the funds that we saved on that project to purchase solar bees. So we, for Kamado Lake, we just put the order in, got the PO, and I'm in the middle of scheduling with the company that's gonna install them, so they should be installed, I'm guessing within 2 to 3 months, we'll have the solar bees in to try to prevent fish kills in Kamado Lake, so hopefully the water quality goes up, so. And I think from last year's list, I think that's what we have.
Cool. On the wildlife side, our connectivity work is about halfway, maybe 2/3 of the way complete. More than halfway in the boot heel, pretty much wrapped up on Macho and set to get started probably today on Taos Plateau. We're halfway or more through the prescribed burning implementation, and that project contributed funds toward the Sotano fire, the Joaquin fire, and the American Creek fire on the Santa Fe and Carson. And those were all 1,000, 2,000 acre fires. Black Mesa and Rio de las Vacas are set to start this fall. So next time, well, I guess not next time we meet, but we'll have an update for you on that in the winter. And then we did have that field trip out to Rio Bonito this spring. The timing was such that it coincided with the early phase of the project. So at that point, people who were on site didn't necessarily have a ton to see. So I thought something we could share today is some drone video that was taken to show you all look, pre-construction look and post-construction look. So I'm gonna bring that up right now. And Corey, you're gonna start the music, right?
All right. Okay, let's go.
Oh, that's post. I'm gonna share the other one. All right, so the first video again is gonna be the pre-construction recon flight. This is where I wanted Corey to be doing the music, but.
You don't want me to be.
Yeah, again, this was a largely a fisheries project, trying to facilitate access for stocking as well as for angling. They wanted to introduce some diversity in stream structures. It was quite entrenched with a lot of willow overgrowth. This video was taken in March of 2023. Obviously some pretty straight, non-diverse sections. Lots of riffle habitat. Here's post-construction. They inserted a lot of woody debris. They cleared out a lot of willow to create room for that river to overflow banks, especially in the lower stretch where they had the ability to do that. That's where we are right now, probably transitioning to the upper reach. In the upper reach, where they didn't necessarily have room to try to force the water out onto the inset floodplain, they did more pool excavation and riffle construction out of those pools. And this was taken in May, which is when the project wrapped up.
of any of the recent floods? Has there been any impacts?
Yeah, I haven't been on site,
Yeah.
but Alex, our Southeast Bio was down there and he went after some rains in May, it would have been. And he said he could already, it was very obvious where, all the pools were and that there was a little bit of, spillover onto one of the contoured parts on the lower reach. He saw some fish. I don't think he could identify what fish they were. Anyways, okay. Yeah, any other questions on previous projects that are hanging out there? No? So one other item, not really item, but just point to make about the meeting, we are going to actually do a new thing with facilitation. I'll kind of keep things on track today, and then the fisheries side is gonna do so tomorrow, so. With that, I think we're set to get started on some project
Sure.
presentations. If you're ready, Corey, I'll
Yeah.
pull up the first one.
All right.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Can you give us a sense of how much money we may have to allocate this year?
Yes, it's gonna be around 2 million. So Leaf was reminding me last year, I think it was 3 million. Ish,
Almost.
yeah, almost, it's similar, almost 2 million this year.
Thank
So, yeah. Good question.
Thank you. All right, thanks again for everyone for coming. We're gonna start off today with our Via Vidal Aquatic Organism Passage Project. This is gonna be different partners, Game and Fish is kind of stepping in with the Forest Service and Trout Unlimited. They had partnered up previously to complete designs or have designs completed. And so we were kind of partnering together to see how we could get this completed as far as financially and how we could help. And so we'll start and we'll go through this. These are the contacts. Trout Unlimited, we have Juliet Smith, Alyssa Radcliffe, she's up there in Cuesta, and then myself for Game and Fish. So this is the location up in the Via Vidal. This is just southeast. Southeast of Costilla. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the area, and this section is right past Comanche Point, where Comanche Creek and Costilla meet. Kind of go up Costilla towards the reservoir there, and this is where these two, and this is where in this watershed here, and we have there are culverts already in the crossing from these two smaller creeks up here. And so that's the location. I guess I'll go further away. Yeah, go ahead. So the background, again, like I said, Trout Unlimited partnered with the Forest Service to complete designs. What we're gonna come in is to help finance the fish passages in order to complete the project. TU will still be a project manager for as far as implementation for the contractors to install them. So we're gonna be in charge of making sure that they receive the aquatic passages. We're hoping to start in fall of 2025 of this year if all, goes smoothly. And it should only take about 2 months. So the current culverts that are there are really small. They're small culverts that go, cross under the road. They get plugged up, backed up. There is no migration for the cutthroat trout to the Costilla Creek. And so the whole goal is to be able to have the migration, because there are native fish. There are native fish in both creeks and of course in Costilla. And so right now, it's just the culverts they're not functioning as they should be. And then this area is really highly used by anglers. I would suggest that this is one of the most easy accessible areas to fish for native cutthroat trout, because a lot of the cutthroat trout creeks that we have in New Mexico are really hard to get to. This is a really accessible and popular area for anglers as well. So obviously the whole purpose of it is, you can see on the map up here on the right, it's kind of hard to see on the point. Should be part. So previous restoration efforts in this whole watershed, this is Comanche here, and then this is Costilla here. And then the two AOPs that we're talking about where it crosses the road are this one here and this one here. And so the ultimate goal of this project is to complete the restoration. So all non-native fish have been removed. We have barriers set up. There's a large barrier right here. Everything above that barrier is native cutthroat trout. We've done lots of habitat restoration work, not only have we removed all the non-native species, but restored the function of Costilla Creek. And it's, I'm happy to say that during some of the last surveys, that they have new recruitment. And so they're spawning on their own different age classes of fish. So it seems to be working really well. But now we want those younger fish and the smaller fish to be able to migrate to and from Costilla Creek as well. And so those, obviously those aquatic passages right now are too small. They can't move back and forth. And so the whole goal of these new passages that we want to put in mimic natural channels. They promote fish passage. They restore ecological processes. And then these new ones reduce maintenance needs because they will get plugged up. So it's not like a regular culvert that's a round culvert where there's no substrate or anything in there. These are more of like a half dome, and then the creek is not inhibited at all, and it functions like it naturally should. So this is just to show you what these kind of culverts look like, or passages look like. As you can see, they're kind of half dome. This is not like actual size, but we have the dimensions up here for both creeks, and just to show you what we're looking at. And the project cost is gonna be about $225,000 is what we're budgeting for this. These are specialized, made to order, by size structures from a company that specializes in these. And this is what was recommended by the engineer. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. Questions?
So I know that folks online didn't get to see all the slides there. Sorry about that. Trying to think if there's any we should go back to.
Yeah, what was going through the mess up?
Yeah, I didn't share the right screen.
Oh, we can go, yeah.
So,
Oh, I didn't see, yeah, we
so
actually missed one.
we'll share this so that they can see it.
Okay, yeah, we can go through them again one more time, and then I think.
You want me to go to the next one?
Yeah, and if anybody has online any questions about it.
Maybe in the meantime, if anybody has any thoughts.
Yeah, so when they do these, is there any in-stream work gonna happen when they do that to just to prevent it from just sweeping through there, and since it's gonna start flowing more, like a pool, like in-stream pools or anything, any work in the river?
Like within it, or are you talking about during construction?
Right at, while they do it, yeah. Like,
During construction.
yeah, like right out of it or something to that nature, just to enhance the creek right there.
Yvette has a
I
hand
can
up.
answer that.
Huh?
Go ahead, Yvette.
Yeah.
So this project, this part of the project is basically just buying the structure. Part of the engineering design is a whole stream simulation. And so within those structures, they will redesign the creek to mimic kind of the natural version of the creek, so that, it doesn't it does a downcut and that kind of thing, and it's not, there's no bottom on those, so you could use natural substrate, and they try to mimic the natural substrate and meanders of the creeks. It functions there.
It's, from that slide, it looks like it's integrated with the whole bridge structure. Is there metal decking across the top? What does it look like from the top view?
From the top view, oh,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a dirt road.
They'll put fill on.
Yeah, it's gonna be fill on top of it, yeah.
So does this project just entail purchase of the structure?
Correct.
And what company, is there a specialty company that only does this?
Yeah, I believe it's out of Ohio. Do you know?
Yeah, there's a
Out of a-
certain company that specializes in these aluminum drop structures, that the engineer prefers. And I don't know exactly where it's from, but
I can't think of the name of the company.
For both of the creeks, is there an estimate of how much, viable spawning ground, stream miles? Or, would it stay watered through the summer in those areas?
Yeah, they are
Any sense?
perennial creeks, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
and it's part of a bigger kind of, in this initial round, we're getting 6 different, stream designs paid for. These are kind of the first 2 that we're gonna attempt. The other ones are kind of on the main road through the Viaduct, so they're gonna be a little bit bigger projects. So we wanted to take these first 2 on La Cueva. That is perennial. There are existing fish up in there, so it's as well as Turner. I forget how many miles I can look at that, Jeff. On La Cueva, we're hoping there's another fish passage further up that eventually hopefully we'll be able to just pull that culvert out of there. There's this little one that's kind of crushed up there that will come out, but it's kind of we've got $1 million from Fish and Wildlife that's going to help pay for these, and then we put in about, I forget, $300,000 to $500,000 so far, as well as what TU has put in, kind of for this whole product restoration for separate projects and $5. This is just kind of first 2.
So the installation is covered with those funding sources?
Yeah.
Just want to know how many miles of creek are we talking about at, giving better access to the main stem?
I'll have to look it up, Art, to be exact, but I think it's about 3 to 4 miles in La Cueva and about the same in Turner, so maybe total of 5 to 7 miles.
Good question over here.
Yes.
Yeah, that was my question, and I heard part of the answer back here, is financial partners on this. Habitat staff is gonna put 225,000 into this. How much is coming from the forest, so US Fish and Wildlife?
So like I said, it's a bigger project where we've got at least 6 projects designed so far. The Forest Service has put in about 250,000, and Fish and Wildlife has put in $1 million of that fish passage money. We're hoping, we had some other money allocated which got pulled away in the administration, so we're trying to figure out that.
Well, this is my question. This looks like a capital project. There's a little bit of habitat that's gonna help fish passage, but it's called habitat stamp. Habitat. And I'm real concerned that this looks like, to me, capital project of putting new bridges in on the Forest Service. Nothing wrong with getting that done. It's just, I'm looking at how many financial partners are involved in this whole project.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion on this one? Yeah, Jimmy, you've spoken. You have anything, Jimmy? Okay,
No, not on this one.
cool. All right. Thanks, Cory.
So this is the Southwest Wildlife Habitat Connectivity Project, which is a conversion of NetWire and non-wildlife friendly fences. I think it's on an automatic timer. Which is a conversion of non-wildlife friendly fence to wildlife friendly across the southwest corner of the state. You can go to the next one. Okay.
Just a sec.
Technical difficulties.
Here.
Yep, not sure.
This is why we have down here.
Now it's green too. There you go. Sorry.
Okay, we good?
We're good.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Is this the right slide, Jim?
Yeah.
Yep. So the project contact are myself, Caitlin from Game and Fish, and then we have Juan Gamon and Lucas Castro from the Texas BLM office. As we're aware, non-wildlife friendly fences are an issue for wildlife across the entire Southwest area, not just New Mexico. So for some background information, so as the scientific literature has shown us, non-wildlife friendly fences will impede or block wildlife from being able to reach their like daily cover needs or their daily needs and long-term needs for food, water, and cover. By converting non-wildlife friendly fence to wildlife friendly, we'll be able to improve the permeability for all the wildlife to be able to move freely throughout the landscape, especially for the species that avoid or cannot jump. Additionally, non-wildlife friendly fence often poses an entanglement threat and also increases the risk of separating family units. There's been a collaborative history on this project, and that seems to be also continuing forward. So for the Las Cruces BLM district office, converting non-wildlife friendly fence to wildlife friendly has been a priority for the office for a while now. And there are 2 mountain ranges in the southwest corner that we've identified that need kind of like a top priority. And the first one is the Pyramid Mountains, which is south of Lordsburg. And that might sound familiar to you. This was talked about last year. So we've identified 10 miles in the Pyramid Mountains that need to be converted. And this has been an ongoing collaborative effort with BLM, Game and Fish, State Land Office, as well as backcountry hunters and anglers. This is great habitat for mule deer and javelina. There's also pronghorn to the east and the north of the Pyramid Mountains, but not in the mountains themselves as of now. And then the second mountain range is the Western San Andreas Mountains, which is east of Ingle, New Mexico. And we prioritized 4 miles within that mountain range. Also great mule deer habitat as well as for some other wildlife. Wait, before you switch. So by being able to connect wildlife throughout this landscape and to be able to reach the upland areas, it enhances wildlife access to cover, food, and possibly even water, as well as shade. And uplands often serve as microclimates from the desert down desert lowlands, and often offer a refuge for them. And then, as we know, with the climate crisis and our monsoon cycle, one neighboring area might receive a ton of rain while the other one receives none. And so by being able to open up the landscape, it allows the wildlife to be able to migrate to where there's actually forage. So as I mentioned, there's been a history of partnership in this area. So last year you guys prioritized 7 miles for conversion in the Pyramid Mountains. That's nearly complete. We have a couple miles left. And then as well as that, backcountry hunters and anglers added to the project by removing 1.25 miles on top of Rimrock Mountain. And that's what's pictured to the left. It was a really great turnout with volunteers from BHA as well as BLM people and Game and Fish came out. We were able to remove the wire pretty quickly. Additionally, the State Land Office has approved 2 more miles in the same mountain range to be converted as well. Here's a map of the Pyramid Mountains area. So you can see here, the purple is what was prioritized last year. Rimrock Mountain is where BHA completed their work. This is the section that's still left. It's mostly on the state trust land. And then the blue is all the new 10 miles that's being proposed, which is all on land managed by BLM. And then this is the map for the Western San Andreas Mountains. And as you can see, it gets up into the hills and the uplands and then drops up into DOD and state trust land. And then this map kind of helps place where they are in relation to each other. The estimated cost for this project is $350,000, which is 14 miles of conversion. This project is shovel ready, and there's been work with the BLM office on both the range and the wildlife departments. Are there any questions?
Are these primarily allotment boundary fences, or are they pasture fences, or is it a mix of them?
They're allotment boundaries.
They're boundaries. And permittees are involved in this and.
Yep, all the permittees that are associated with these allotments are on board.
None of that's on the Armanderos.
No, it's just a little east of the Armanderos. Yes.
Boy, we're whizzing through these. Everybody good on that one?
I have a question, Caitlin. So how did you determine that these were the priority sections? And what proportion of the fences are net wire versus just really poorly designed barbed wire?
I'll let Jen handle that.
We prioritized them, the Pyramid Mountains where it's a popular hunting spot. There's a lot of javelina in the area that can't really get through net wire. It's also great mule deer habitat. It also, all the permittees were on board, which helps facilitate any project. And I would say 80% of it's net wire and maybe 20% is about 6-strand barbed wire.
Okay. And then so for the Pyramid Mountains, once you do this net wire conversion, how much net wire is estimated to be left out there?
I don't know this. So the 7 miles from last year, plus what State Land Office did in BHA, and then these 10 miles is about 20. And I think that is the bulk of it. I, in my walking through the pyramids, haven't come across more. So I don't quite know.
Okay.
So these are historical sheep allotments that are no longer. Mhm.
Any other questions or thoughts from the CAC? So I couldn't see the public portion of the meeting on here, but we do have some members of the public online. Della, if you'd like, we'll open it up for you all, whoever's interested in commenting on this one. And after we hear all comments on this one, we'll jump back to the previous one, and try and knock that out too, so.
Yeah, if anybody has a question online, just raise your hand. Oh, we do have one from a David Hecht. David, if you can unmute yourself and you can ask your question or comment. David Heft.
He's unmuted. We can't hear you, Dave.
Still can't hear me.
Here we go. Got you.
All right. Had to play around with some settings here. Just some comments you all have heard from me before when I was on the CAC. I really emphasize that we should be requiring a top smooth wire on any fence that's paid for with wildlife funds. Other states are already doing this, even in working with private landowners. More ungulates cross over the top of a fence than underneath. And that barbed wire on top is just as detrimental as one on the bottom. Also would like to see more of the what's going on with contributed funds in these projects. I know some of you have heard this from me before, but range programs in the federal agencies, I'd be paying a huge chunk of money anytime they're replacing fences. The only reason they're there is because of livestock, and those livestock programs need to be contributing significantly. And that's the only two comments I have on this project. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public want to comment on this one, and then we'll bounce back?
Elizabeth, did you have a question or comment?
That'll probably be on the other one, I would guess.
Yeah.
I have one from Juan.
Yep. Yeah.
Can you hear me there?
Yes.
Oh, great. Sorry. Juan Gamon with BLM in Las Cruces. Just wanted to add on to Jen's presentation here and give a huge thanks to you all for the help that was done and the ongoing work that keeps going there in the pyramids with last year's funding. To add on to the comment from the public there, there is a lot of great work going on in the pyramids. It's been part of a big assessment project that we've done on land health assessment. Cleaned out about 12 tanks this winter, dirt tanks. And there is a lot of leveraging funds from 8100 range betterment funds that have gone into a project for fence conversion in the pyramids. Also a big project working with other partners like BCI for agave restoration and a big precision ranching project just south of some of those fences that are being built now for virtual fencing and precision ranching with NMSU. So very much appreciated for all the great work that has been done in the pyramids. Quite frankly, changed some legacy practices that have been going on and switching the landscape and the habitat there. So much appreciated for all the help from last year's funding and hope to keep this going. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, and then if anybody wants to comment on the first one, do you have something? Lee?
Just one on this, and I know
Yeah.
it's a dumb question, but just to make sure everybody knows, this is just for the removal of the wire, right? It's not.
And the replacement
And the replacement
with
wire,
wildlife friendly.
and that's where I wonder. The question is, Range should be paying for the replacement wire. For service,
That's the
BLM.
question.
Well, that's what, in the past, you know, when you do something with a permittee, the federal agency provides the materials. And the permittee maintains the fence, right?
Yeah.
And so
That's it.
now they're leaning on the state habitat money to replace the fence for them. That's been, not maintained by the permittee. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that they're bringing funds in other places too, but, you know, obviously we're
I realize,
vested in. the-
realize the Forest Service and the BLM and the federal agencies have had their legs cut out from underneath them in recent months, but it's still, while it is a good habitat thing to build fences properly, I don't think that the habitat stamp fund, I can see the habitat stamp fund paying for the removal of that wire, but not for replacing the fence that would end up being the property of the land management agency or the landlord.
Okay,
So I have an issue with it.
okay.
And I'd add on to that, like, too, you know, as a range staff for many years, it's exactly what we did. You know, permittees, we provide materials, permittee would either contract work done or do it themselves, and I would like to see a little more input with permittees here. I know they're on board with it, but does that mean they're just good with it, or are they helping with it, or?
Are they pounding post in the ground and stretching wire, or are they just?
They're all,
Yeah, you can
they're
do
all
it.
good with it, cause BLM has to get
Right.
them on board with it.
That's a different scenario than being good with it and actually contributing to the project.
Yeah, in some cases they do, but
Highly
that's not.
beneficial
like
to them because.
I would be good with it if somebody came and replaced my fence.
Yeah, me too.
Right.
You know,
Sure. I will say that, Roswell BLM has $1 million that they're working to put on the landscape in the Macho area on this. And so I know, I don't have specific numbers other places with where they're contributing.
I know we approved a project last year, and I was due on the board, but, I would like to see a little more transparency on what are the costs of these projects? Is it for just removal? Is it for the materials? Why are we, as a habitat stamp committee, approving, fence maintenance that would normally have been done by the agency and the permittee, had it not come up that, oh, it's an issue with wildlife? Okay, and how come it hasn't been taken care of for the past 30 or 40 or 50 years when that fence was put up, when the permittee is responsible for maintaining that fence? And net wire is one thing, but when you say 20% of it's barbed wire, I'm sorry. That's somebody else's responsibility.
Well, I would,
Well,
just to counter that a little bit, the fences are well maintained. The permittee is keeping them up. They're perfectly in great shape. It's just that wildlife can't get through them because they're net wire or 6-strand barbed wire.
And
There's
so
no
what-
4-strand.
So what's wrong with taking the top 2 strands off that barbed wire and removing that and leaving the fence there and not replacing it with a bunch of new fence?
Yeah,
Okay?
I think maybe for those sections that could potentially be possible, and making the bottom one at least smooth. That could definitely come, something that we could discuss with the contractor, but I mean, they are maintained. That's all I'm saying, is that they're not.
That's good to know. That's good to know. And I'm not trying to be combative, but we have small pot of money and but there's 15 projects here to look at.
11.
And they all have qualifications to do something for wildlife, but there's other partners or non-partners here that are benefiting maybe more than the wildlife, okay? I've been in the Fairlands, I've hunted it, and it's a great place, a very cool place, but, I have some real questions, so I'll shut up. Sorry, all right?
No, we hear you, Leaf. I mean, we hear you for sure. Obviously, the bottom line for us is that there's a need for this work and it's valuable for wildlife, particularly the net wire. So that's why
appreciate
we
it.
bring it forward, but
When I'm
Get
trying
your
to
point
balance
when
which
you're
one
trying
that
to-
I would
yeah.
like to
Yeah.
vote for, it helps me decide. And
Yeah.
I might still decide on this if the money's there, but.
Yeah.
You know.
okay,
Yeah. I would,
JP,
I would totally agree with Lee there, you know, when you're talking about the miles of that fencing that's already there, that's just not wildlife friendly, it doesn't have to be removed. And that should be really looked at and put into the presentation, even for it to go forward, I would think, you know, because I totally agree, it's, that part of the fencing is literally their fence that they have to, maintain it afterward too. You know, are we gonna do this and then they don't maintain it? Cause there's a lot of fences that aren't maintained. So you go put a new fence in that we do. What's to say that it's not gonna be, you know, working at that point, you know, keeping the cattle in their leases, you know, that too. You know, we want the fence intact and maintained. And I don't know, I've seen so many miles of fences that weren't, you know, so it makes you think when somebody, you know, like when you mentioned they're maintained, they're in great shape. I have a little concern about that, you know. So
I
it's
also
money.
think net wire just holds up really well.
It does. But it's also
Terrible
detrimental
stuff.
to
Yeah.
cattle. You know, that, it's not a good fence for any animal. But yeah, you know, they don't maintain a lot of fences for a lot of other issues too, you know, our exclosures or enclosures or whatever. You know, we need help from them to maintain, to keep their cattle where they need to be, you know.
Juan, I see you have your hand up. You've had it up for a while. Why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself? And then we have Ron here.
Sure, thank you. And just to add on to that concern there, absolutely, the burden does fall on the permittee. When we do put these projects together, we do issue a co-op to hold that responsibility on the permittee to continue to maintain the maintenance of the project. And to add on to Jen's, a lot of these fences are functional and serve to the purpose for livestock. We do find the value, as you mentioned, of wildlife habitat and connectivity. So that's why we wanted to convert. It calls for the need to remove some of that sheep wire. Currently, the fences are up. They currently are being maintained, but they're not a wildlife friendly fence. But yes, to add on, they are responsible for the maintenance of this fence.
Thanks, Juan. Ron, you had something?
Just a question, are these permittees running cattle or sheep? Cattle, and so these net wire fences are very, very old?
Yes.
Okay, and so there's no sheep out there now?
Sheep
I
pretty
don't
much
think-
disappeared over most of the southwest.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of thought so, but I didn't expect to
There's
hear
lots of old fences
discussions
still out
of
there.
sheep fences. So what's the carrying capacity of these areas for cattle? It looks like desert to me, and so,
Exactly.
we're spending a whole lot of money for 50 head of cattle or something?
I don't know what the carrying capacity for cattle is. Juan might know that, but I think the money is being spent so wildlife it can move across the landscape. Not for cattle.
Well, it would be better to take them down and leave them down, and not have the cattle if there are only a few of them. Be cheaper to pay the permittees off. Okay, just a comment. It's a
Yeah.
philosophical comment.
Sure thing.
You know, there's one thing on the sheep fences. I've seen a lot too in my travels, and a lot of them are sagging, they're down, cattle walk right over them. I mean, I wanna know that they're like you say, that they're in good shape and standing upright and stuff, because most of it's not really standing upright. How old are they? You know? It's kind of just a concern.
Are they all built with T-post or old mesquite poles?
T-post.
Juniper poles?
But I don't know what these are here.
They had T-post.
It's all rock. It's all rock.
Anybody else have any other comment on this one? Okay, how about the Vividal AOP? Anybody from the public have anything to add on that, Elise?
Alyssa Radcliffe?
Yeah.
Alyssa Radcliffe, you can unmute yourself. I don't know if she can hear me.
Hi,
how are you guys this afternoon?
Yeah, we got you.
I was just gonna let everybody know that these culverts, from an engineering point of view for the Carson, are functioning roadwise. We wouldn't have replaced them because they are functioning. They're just not functioning for aquatic fish passage. And Game and Fish came to us and said, we need to connect these streams to Costilla so that we can have fish migration and more spawning connectivity. So I just was letting everybody know that. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's all we have online.
Okay, cool. All right, Corey.
Next one.
Yeah, give me a second
Oh,
to
yeah.
get this right.
Yeah, I'll wait until we.
Good.
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 All right, this project, we're heading down south into the Gila. And it's the Main and South Diamond Habitat Improvement Project, and this will be for designs on this project. Yeah.
Corey, who is the fisheries biologist contact? There's kind of blocked out.
Yeah, that's what I was waiting. I thought she was gonna be able to get rid of it. It's gonna be Eileen.
Eileen Henry.
Eileen Henry, yeah. Yeah, I could just tell you, yeah. Sorry. But for the folks online, I guess they can hear me. Yeah, Eileen Henry will be contact. Just wait till fisheries has control of this.
Uh-oh. I don't think I can see it.
No, they can't. No, you have to share. Perfect. Okay, perfect. Yeah, and then we'll tap on.
Okay, Corey.
Okay. We can go to the next one. All right, so this project, like I said, is located in the Gila. This is gonna be in the Aldo Leopold Wilderness on Main Diamond Creek and South Diamond Creek watershed. Just showing you that this is really high up in the wilderness, and both trails access each creek. They start at the Diamond Creek Trailhead, located 44 miles of Mimbres, New Mexico. So background of this is that there was the large, the Black Fire in 2022, which pretty much decimated the habitat and everything up in these watersheds. A encompassed over about 327,000 acres, of which 93% of the main Diamond Creek headwaters were obliterated. 92% of the South Diamond Creek watershed were burned. No Gila trout survived in these two creeks. An interesting fact, Main and South Diamond were two of the 5 creeks with genetically pure lineages of Gila trout. And they were listed as endangered in 1967 prior to the endangered species list. So this is like the core population, or was the core population. So that's the goal, is to kind of, recreate the habitat and eventually introduce the trout again into these two creeks. So since it is in the wilderness, a lot of this work is going to be done, hand tools, pack mules, but this is just for the design purposes of it for the in-stream habitat restoration. Just all the, the regular stuff that comes with, with these degraded fish habitat, improving channel stability, restore the pool frequencies, ripples, maybe, doing some log jams, root wads, some cross veins, kind of whatever we can by hand. Hopefully the goal is to reduce or to have more resilience to future, disturbances such as large fires. This system now, it's been, what was it, 2025? It's speaking with biologists, it's starting to do its own recovery a little bit, but still the creek itself is pretty bad. So that's where we want to come in. Since these are only designs, estimated cost is only, it's gonna be about $40,000. And yeah, hopefully, with all the fires going, happening down south, which, it's pretty bad. This is a real, these two creeks are really important as far as Gila trout restoration and keeping a good population down there. So, pretty quick project, but this is, one that came up, and see if y'all have any questions about it or comments. Yeah.
I think it's big time needed, just like you said.
Yeah.
I've been in South Diamond, and
Yeah.
it is exactly like you said, it got obliterated.
Yeah. it's bad.
And the water's hot.
Yeah.
And it's just messed up.
That was one of the biggest issues is water temperature. There, right now, there's no cover, there's no shade, there's nothing.
Yeah, and I've talked with some folks already. We could probably put together a public volunteer group with this, if we can get it going.
Yeah.
But it needs help. I don't know. You're gonna have, you'd have to use mules or something to get the equipment back up in there. So I don't really know how that's gonna go down, but,
We
would like
might be
to-
able to drop some stuff off with helicopter, maybe, I don't know. But
Yeah.
but as far as implementation goes, once designs are done, the expensive part is packing stuff in. Pack deals, hiring companies to help us get equipment in there. Yes.
I didn't see anything on the bullet list for increasing the shade. You're gonna plant willows at this early stage, or?
Well, hopefully by creating pools, deeper pools, and we kind of raise some of the water level, it's gonna create the riparian habitat as well, which will increase the vegetation on the sides.
Okay, I think some of the creeks that got obliterated in the Jemez, like the Dome Fire, it took 10 years before it recovered enough to support the fish. This is only about 3 years out.
Correct, yeah.
Is there any evidence of insect populations recovering? I have something to eat.
I would have no idea. I'm not the entomologist.
Well,
But I'm yeah.
I guess my point is, there's a lot of natural recovery that has to accompany this, and this seems maybe early in the stage.
Yes, and if we, as long as we have, if we get designs, then, by the time we do an implementation, we can do more consulting with our biologists who frequent the area a lot. to kind of have a better assessment on it, but from the last assessment that was done with our biologist, did say that it's starting to recover pretty well, so now we're at the point of just starting to get designs for it.
Yeah, I'm not a biologist, but that place is, it's an animal mecca.
Yeah,
You know, and the oak and all of the bushes are just going wild
Yeah.
right now.
so.
It's like they've got these nutrients now that they
Mhm.
haven't had for a lot of years.
Yes, and I mean, that's the natural process of after a fire, we just don't wanna see the crowning fires that just destroy everything, but also
Yeah.
puts nutrients back, you're gonna see that understory come first, and then,
Yeah.
so, but yeah.
So Corey, what are your design cost of 40,000? What is your ultimate goal with that design? Is that just to?
We use
provide
the
you with a
design,
plan, or-
yeah, we use the designs, for, the engineer will design the habitat work that, for what we're asking for or what our goals are. And then once we have those designs, we can either, ourselves or hire contractors that will go out there with, with the hand tools and the equipment to build the structures themselves.
So you're just at step one right now.
We're at step one.
All right, that's what I was clear on.
Yeah, but it needs to happen, so, yeah.
No,
I mean, you gotta start somewhere.
Pretty much hiring hydrologists to look at it.
Correct, yeah.
When it comes down to it, though, make sure you keep the public volunteer list open on that.
Okay, definitely.
Cause that's something that there's a few people that are really interested in that.
Good to hear.
Any of our virtual CAC members have anything on that? Looks like nothing from Art or Jimmy, so yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I think everybody that was on the CAC with me before knows I always have a little heartburn with paying for paperwork. However, having said that, Main Diamond Creek was my main go-to place back in the 80s, back when it was still the Black Range primitive area. Absolutely beautiful country, fantastic potential. At that time, there were even beaver dams in Main Diamond Creek. So I am glad the Forest Service does recognize the constraints of the Wilderness Act. And like John has said and everybody else, man, if you get this put together and you need volunteers, even though some of us are getting old, we'll be right there to help you out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Della, do you have anybody else? Okay, cool.
All right.
Thanks, Corey.
Yeah.
We have a scheduled break now, so let's reconvene in 15 minutes, so 2:20.
Okay.
Thanks. All right. Hey, everybody back there, we're gonna get started. Real quick announcement or a slight modification. Given how quickly we're going through these, I was thinking of rolling one of the presentations from first thing tomorrow to today. Everybody's okay with that?
Sure.
And then maybe I talked about taking comment after each of these presentations. At the very end of the day, we'll take some public comment too, in case there's anybody that can't be with us tomorrow, for any general comments.
Okay.
But with that, we're going to jump back in. Give me a second here, Rhea, to get myself situated. You don't.
I'm Andrea Petrulo with New Mexico Game and Fish, and this is the Upper Rio Puerco riparian restoration. This is a collaborative project with myself, Caitlin Rule, Sidra Barella, and Charles Schaub. They're the BLM wildlife biologist and hydrologist respectively for the Rio Puerco area.
Next one.
Yes, please. Thanks. Yeah, so the Rio Puerco is a deeply incised semi-perennial stream, or river, sorry, that's been damaged by historic overgrazing and erosion. The BLM is working to restore a roughly 30-mile stretch of the river between Cuba and Cabazon. And they've applied for a river stewardship grant to help them with that work. The decision on funding is still pending. So any money that they may receive from the Habitat Stamp program would be additive to the funding they get from there. So this project focuses on Rio Puerco BLM's two highest priority, most shovel-ready projects. That's Señorito Canyon, which is up here. It's a tributary that feeds into the Puerco. And Wilson Canyon, which is down here. Along with more planned work down on Coal Creek, that comprises a roughly 9-mile stretch of the Rio Puerco. So there's also a parcel of state land trust out here, the green oval. Right between Señorito, it's right where Señorito Creek feeds into the Rio Puerco. It's currently being managed in collaboration with Rio Grande Returns in a really one-of-a-kind partnership. So the riparian restoration on that parcel has already begun. And we're going to be hearing a little bit more about that in a moment from Art Anaya from the State Land Office. This project area overlaps with a wildlife vehicle collision mitigation project that spans, it's a wildlife-proof fence that funnels wildlife from roughly 5 miles of 550 to 2 wildlife crossings here and here. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Art for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, Della, could you unmute Art? And it's a little bit of an aside, but hearing from him, at least will kind of paint the picture of what all is going on in this landscape right now.
Yes, Rhea, thank you. Caitlin, thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
I do apologize. I wish I could be there in person. I'm traveling for work, so unfortunately I'll have to visit with you here via Zoom. But I am very pleased to present to you today what we're doing on state trust land. There, what's circled in green. A little bit of background about myself. I actually spent 7 years working at the Department of Game and Fish, so this is a very meaningful presentation for me. And today, however, I'm here on behalf of the State Land Office. For those of you that know or may not know, the State Land Office manages approximately 9 million acres of surface, what we call state trust land, across the state. We manage these lands to generate revenue for our state beneficiaries, mainly those common schools or public schools. And we do that by allowing different activities across the landscape. Now, under this current administration, we're looking towards diversifying where that income comes from, but also keeping a keen focus on conservation work across these acreages. And today, it's very exciting. We have this this two sections of state trust land there circled in green that is held under what we're calling a stewardship lease, which is a new leasing type there at the state land office that's held by Rio Grande Return to do affirmative restoration type action. This is the first of its kind. So we are here today to support this proposed project on BLM, which is along the same corridor of the Rio Puerco for this work. But, that's, I'll stand for questions, but maybe Ria, you want to finish the presentation and then I'll stand for questions if needed.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Okay, so if you are unfamiliar, the Rio Puerco has been a major contributor of sediment to the Rio Grande in recent years. In the 1960s, it was diverted into a straight channel west of 550. And since 1999, agencies have been working together to reestablish the Rio Puerco to its original stream bed and begin riparian restoration. In 2019, the New Mexico DOT put in these two wildlife crossing areas at Wilson Canyon and Bull Creek. And what we are hoping to do with this project is to improve habitat for a diverse suite of wildlife with a special focus on elk and deer during migration and road crossings, as well as potential resident species that are not currently there, such as beaver. And to induce meandering in the Rio to reconnect the historic floodplain trapping sediment, increase diversity of native riparian plants, and exposures to support the ungrazed status of the riparian area. The actions that we're looking to take is native riparian plantings with temporary browse cages around them to support them until they're well established. In-stream structures to trap sediments, stabilize banks, and reconnect the floodplain, and invasive plant treatment. So there's a lot of salt cedar and Russian olive, especially in these areas, and maintain or rebuild wildlife-friendly fencing. So this is Señorito Canyon. This is one of the tributaries that feeds into the Rio Puerco, and there are currently 5 existing cattle exposures. They make up roughly 150 acres around the semi-perennial tributary. It's important to wintering elk, migratory and riparian species, and there are historic records of beaver ponds in the area. We also have some sensitive species like northern leopard frog, cassin sparrow, loggerhead shrike, and pinyon jay. The creek itself is slightly incised within an incised floodplain. So since 1992, this area has had woody species planting, salt cedar removal. They've done some macroinvertebrate sampling, breeding bird surveys, and exposure fence maintenance. The planned maintenance actions include in-stream structures like beaver dam analogs to retain water, activate the floodplain, improve riparian habitat, control erosion. They also want to do some invasive plant removal, more native plantings and seeding, and repair the exposure fence. They already have the equipment and funds to do that internally, the exposure fence. But they need some assistance with the water gaps. This is what it looks like when there's actually water in it. But, and then for the other site, Wilson Canyon, similarly, the past actions include invasive plant treatment, cottonwood and willow plantings, installing high fence exclosures around the willow and cottonwood, and maintenance of a riparian exposure fence. They would like to do some more in-stream structures here, large woody debris and riprap to induce meandering, trap sediment, prevent further erosion, remove the old exposure fences, the browse fences around the plantings because they're now well established. Invasive plant removal and some more native plantings. And you can see most of this green out here is actually fresh willow growth. So the native plantings that they've done have really taken off and spread. So as I mentioned earlier, Wilson Canyon is part of a DOT project to prevent wildlife strikes on 550. So it's part of this very important migration corridor for deer and elk. And they're funneled through a roughly 5-mile fence through 2 points, one of which is emptying into Wilson Canyon. During a 2-year effort, DOT documented 571 occurrences of wildlife using the structure. 42% of those were mule deer and 37% were elk. We do have some data from their trail cams. So this North Rio Puerco is the Wilson Canyon overpass. Total of 12 wildlife species documented using it within that time. And this is some of the in-stream structures that we're considering putting in here. We have, these are beaver dam analogs, BDAs. There's a similar structure called PALS, but post-assisted log structures, that rather than damming the entire stream, it just kind of juts out a little bit into the stream to induce a meander. And then one rock dams that kind of help mimic the erosion and deposition pattern that would be natural in a healthier river system. So this is the Wilson Canyon exposure. This dotted line on the outside here is the DOT maintained wildlife fence that helps funnel wildlife from about 2 miles or 2.5-ish miles north to this open here. And then there's another 2.5 miles or so reaching south. There's currently 2 fairly large gaps in the fence. There's a 2,000-foot and a 165-foot gap. And then there are 3 points where head cutting and erosion will necessitate the fence being diverted. And just to keep in mind the larger landscape scale of this project, looking forward in future years, the Coal Creek, so this is the other DOT wildlife underpass. This is a roughly 3.5-mile long exposure here. Similarly, they also need fence repair and maintenance, planting, seeding, in-stream structures for erosion, and invasive plant removal. And so this, you can see, this is the second overpass data. So that's what empties into Wilson Coal Creek. Right here. And the BLM has also slated twin bridges. So it's where the Rio Puerco passes under 550. It's on the east side of 550, right over here. There is some wildlife cattle exposure fence around the river there, but it would probably need a lot of beefing up in the future. So this is planned for farther out because it's not quite as shovel ready. So it's exposure fence, planting, seeding, in-stream structures, just like the others. And as you can see, the potential for this reaches down the Rio Puerco pretty much all the way to Cabazon. BLM has some more parcels in here. I'm not sure how well they're showing up, but the hope is to really make a big impact in this entire landscape. So even though each of these individual projects might be on the smaller side, they really add up to a much larger whole. And we wanted to propose this in a way that was flexible since the price estimates that we have at the moment are a little rough. So we would like to allocate some money to Señorito and some to Wilson Canyon. Just kind of the balance of that might look a little bit different in the long run. But the estimate that we have so far is asking for $350,000, which is about $100,000 for Señorito and $250,000 for Wilson Canyon. And you could see breakdown over here, invasive removal, 30,000 for Senorito, 90,000 for Wilson, and so on, replanting in-stream structures. And for fencing, BLM is going to do most of this in-house for Senorito. They're just asking for money for the water gap, and Wilson would require a greater balance of that.
That's the last slide, right?
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Just a question, what's the timeline for the project? If you had funding, or once it starts, how long before it's completed?
Both, Senorito and Wilson are shovel ready, right?
Yes.
And, yeah, so I think the in-stream work sort of stuff, we would probably have to coordinate scheduling with the contractor on that, so. I can't speak to how quickly that would come to fruition, but I know that they're both shovel ready.
Kind of back to the same thing, you know, historically, you said that it was, degraded a lot by heavy grazing and things of that nature. What's going on with the grazing in it now, you know, cause we're talking about, invasive weeds, restoring vegetation and things of that nature. What has been done with the lessees in there, or is there still grazing going on?
No, there's not, but I can let Isidro speak to it.
Yeah, so this entire stretch, Wilson Canyon, Senorito Canyon, Wilson Canyon, Twin Bridges, and Coal Creek have been excluded. We have cooperative agreements with permittees that they are excluded grazing. Wilson Canyon, that big gap in the northern end, it was a natural boundary, but because of the erosion, it has sloped in, so we have cattle getting in there now, and that's why we have to push. Because we want them out of there, especially because this is a wildlife corridor, pushing wildlife underneath 550, we want to make sure that cows are not camping out in the riparian area, degrading it further. So we are actively working with permittees to make sure, you know, they are getting their cows out. And since this is a wildlife exposure, it falls within the wildlife program to maintain these fences. And so just being the only resource within our field office, you know, trying to solicit external, you know, collaboration is, you know, huge. It goes a long way as far as trying to get these individual reaches to be sustainable in the long term. And so that's where we are. We are actively maintaining them. In 2019, we did a big maintenance in Coal Creek, but because of erosion, these fences are at least 20 years old. Yeah, there's some sections that are either falling within the arroyos or they're 20-year-old wire that's this needs to be replaced. And so they are functioning, but there's some weak spots. You know,
So the grazing is going all around them. And the exposure fences is keeping the cattle out. But the lessees don't have any skin in the game to keep their cattle out of it. Nothing. I mean, it's like, so the noxious weeds or the invasive weeds and things like that, we're talking just in the exposure areas, right?
Well, the exposure is the whole riparian area, and they are more like wet land plants. They're wetland plants, the salt cedar and I mean, you find them kind of everywhere, but that's like the main problem, is where there's access to water.
Yeah, I don't know how bad they are right in those corners, but I drove by the other spots and it's solid,
Yeah.
solid trees.
And in those areas, there has been a lot of removal done already. So, I mean, even if you drive through there, you can see the difference between the BLM portion and the private land. It's starting to come back, but we're at the point too where we don't want that establishment to reestablish, especially if it could be done state land office above us. Trying to do a larger landscape restoration, moving south after Cabazon, it gets onto tribal land. And then we all seen the part where we're driving south of the land, you know, it's just full of salt cedar. And we don't want to get back to that point and trying to do the best we can for habitat connectivity and restoring, you know, the equal natural balance of riparian upland dynamics within that system.
Just frustrating that we have to maintain their cattle out of it when, and they don't, what's to stop them from just not worrying about it and letting the cattle get through every time they can, you know? It's, without them being partnered up in that sense, you know, we don't, are we always gonna have this issue with them? not-
Yeah, John, and obviously that's, you know, part of the ask of this project is that the flip side is the other work that they're hoping to get done. And the importance in the fence in protecting that investment
Right. well,
when
that's-
that work gets
That's
done.
what I wanna see is make sure that the fence is done, but it's solely, we're solely bearing that cost.
And it is, and we do have, well, they're agreements with the terms that I mentioned, so they have agreed to not have their cattle on there, and so we have the means of issuing them citations for unauthorized livestock. But part of this project, working with Rio Grande Buchanan, the
Bear Coalition.
Bear Coalition, we have put in for grants for a EPA farmer to farmer proposal to try to educate landowners how to manage upstreams, therefore we can better manage the repairing system. But because of EPA funding and a lot of federal grants that got built, that was went by the wayside. But as part of this, internally, we want to not only focus on the riparian, but eventually, you know, we gotta manage uplands in order to, you know, manage the whole watershed. So large scale, but you know, we starting somewhere, like we gotta, you know, get something going. So part of a bigger question.
The Senorito Creek in particular, they already have the supplies and funding to do that in-house as well. That was
Jimmy, you've had your hand up a while. You wanna unmute?
Yeah, so is this gonna be a high fence exclosure?
No, it's
Yeah. So what's the water gap for then?
for Senorito Canyon. So when they were designed, there were 5 exclosures and they had allowed a pass through. So for the permittees to push cattle from one side to the other side. So we have a bunch of so those exclosures end, and then there's like a 100-foot gap where it's a little corridor. And so those are those water gaps that would be needed, since they get blown out every so often, or we want to design them that are more sustainable. So either floatable gates or something along those lines where they're not barbed wire and it's kind of, they just get buried in sediment and like that.
Yeah, thanks.
So you have, maintenance that you've done on these exposures, the 4 strand you said?
Yeah.
And they're holding up?
Yeah.
See, I like to hear that because there's no reason why they shouldn't be, and we shouldn't have to always constantly go to pipe fences. Because that's partly the cattle, the lessee's issue too. You know, these fences are in there, and if they're partnering up in there, you know, they're responsible for all the maintenance of the other fencing. But we need their partnership with that fencing too to help maintain it, you know, so. I'd like to hear that they've been maintained and they're still working.
And this area is unique as far as grazing, because Wilson Canyon, so the names Wilson Canyon, Cold Creek, La Ventana, also known as Twin Bridges, they're all allotments. And so they all converge at the Wilson Canyon crossing. And so they're also holding each other accountable because, oh, so-and-so's cows were in there, why can't I be there? Well, so-and-so, so like we have to get everyone out. And so all of us holding each other accountable helps that. And so we've had permittees build some fence for us in Wilson Canyon. Hey, I'm having this issue, like, hey, we can provide you the materials, can you build it for us? So we've done that recently, and so they're willing to work with us. But it's just, there's just so much to handle, you know, need that for that external help. Really great.
And the upstream out of these exposures, how is that looking? What does that habitat look like?
It looks good. I don't know. It's been a while. I don't know when the last rangeland health assessments have been in there, done in there. But I can dig up some more information. if you want, and-
I wonder how it's going to affect all of the work that we do in the exposure areas. You know, is it going to affect it with sediment and constant sediment issue? You know, kind of like the Stewart Meadows thing is gonna come up sooner or later. Got a stretch of private land there and the sediment's coming out of there and affecting the downstream. So kind of curious of what's going on around these areas that we're talking about. But I do like I like the area. I know it needs help. So.
And it's really cool. I mean, from the road, you can see these cottonwood galleries that are just, they look beautiful once you get in there, but from the road, you see the tops of them. But once you get in there, it's, I mean, it's some pretty nice vegetation, willows and woods and Mexico olive, you can find it out there, but we're checking out.
Go ahead, Ron.
This is kind of a question about geomorphology and history. About 20 years maybe ago is when Wild Earth Guardians started planting the willows and cottonwoods in there. And so I see the tops of them driving on 550. It looks like they're thriving pretty well. And so your objective is to basically do more of that now?
Yes.
At one time, they were claiming that they were maybe even beaver down there.
And there is beaver upstream closer to Cuba on private land.
Okay.
And so that is the goal, to try to increase the habitat that can support beaver. Because it is, if you pass Cuba Bridge, there is water in the Puerto. And I think it's largely attributed to that beaver population. And so if we can try to get them back lower in the system, maybe we can potentially hold water for longer.
Just have to have something to eat.
Yeah.
Okay, the other aspect is, as I understand, about 100 years ago, the upper mesas or flatland that you see along there was being farmed. Yes. And it was productive, and they basically destroyed the topsoil and erosion happened. And so what we see of the Puerto now, which was down about 30 or 40 feet, is erosion that's happened over like 100 years. And so the water table now, instead of being above where the highway would be above 550, is way down below. So the floodplain now is just the area between the arroyo walls, right?
Yeah.
The floodplain is very, very narrow. It's hardly enough to call it a floodplain.
Yeah.
You've got the Rio Puerco, which is it perennial?
It's the Rio Puerco is
intermittent. Intermittent and banks with vegetation lines. So when you talk about floodplain and meanders and all of that, you're talking about something that's maybe as wide as this building is long. So this is a very unique kind of floodplain. By the way, I'm not opposed to it. I think it's a really, really good idea.
I mean, I think that very long term, probably not in our lifetimes, but if we can start some riparian restoration, it's possible we could get that water table back up a bit. It's never gonna be what it was. I think a lot of damage has been done, but there's potential for.
And if you don't mind me adding a little tidbit of information, so recently in a geomorphology course I took up in Fort Collins, Colorado, as part of my hydrology training, we actually got to talk to Dr. Alan Gillis, who has done a lot of work in the Rio Puerco in terms of research, and as of now, he's fairly confident in saying that right now the Rio Puerco is now in its aggradation stage, where in some areas of the Rio Puerco, it's widened out enough where it's starting to build a new floodplain, is starting to build itself back up. So in other words, in some ways, the Rio Puerco is naturally recovering, but there's still more work to be done, and there's still other areas of the Rio Puerco that need to catch up. So that's my 2 cents.
And the cattle grazing there is more recent. I mean, 100 years ago, it was just farming. And then it seems that's a very minor part of the what the things that are affecting the Rio Puerco now. Is that correct? I don't know. I didn't see much grazing when I drive by.
Yeah, they are, it is excluded, so cattle shouldn't be in there. And then this is also within the range of the southwestern willow flycatcher. So in the long term, goals to potentially expand that habitat from, you know, Rio Grande up, but we'll see.
So we're gonna have more Tamara's instead of the Southwest Tamara's
Yeah.
flight after. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Art, do you have anything to add before, or anybody else online with the CAC?
Yeah, Caitlin, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. I was thinking about what I was explaining to you in terms of our leasing on state trust land with Rio Grande Return. And I neglected to explain exactly what type of work they're going to be completing. Rio Grande Return received roughly $500,000 from our River Stewardship Fund to improve this reach of the Rio Puerco. And so in the next couple of years, they're going to be doing some in-stream work, building some of these BDAs that Ria explained, as well as some plantings and invasive species removal. So the work that is being proposed on BLM, we're excited about, because the work that we're accomplishing and attempting to accomplish on our state couple sections there is just part of this larger restoration, larger scale project. So I wanted to explain that portion to you all if I neglected to mention it.
Thanks, Art. Anybody have any questions
I
for
have
me?
a question for Art involving that lease you were talking about. So that's not so that you said somebody's one of a kind now, and so I'm guessing that's not under a grazing lease anymore under that state trust lands?
So that's a great question. Our office, so there's in our portfolio, there's several different ways we engage in agreements with different entities. We have our grazing leases that you just mentioned. We have business leases or commercial leases. We have rights of way, and we also have what's called a land use with restrictions and conditions, or LURC. Those are in rule leasing. Leasing instruments that we have. So we don't have a stewardship rule yet, but what we're operating under is a grazing lease. But in the sense of what work's being done on the landscape, we're calling those stewardship leases. So to answer your question, yes, this is technically a grazing lease, but the work that they're completing is stewardship.
Art, do you think that there will be some move to include that in rule in the future, depending on how this first or other ones go?
Absolutely. You know, here at the land office, we're trying to incorporate sound stewardship and, you know, that ethic across the board and all of our leasing instruments. So this is an opportunity now to showcase the work that Rio Grande Return is going to be doing with us and continue, you know, satisfying our mission and generating revenue, but doing it from a diverse activity that's helping our landscape.
Thanks. Okay, anybody from the public have any comment on this? No? All right. Cool. Thank you all. I get to do this dance again. We're doing our.
Yeah.
Good.
Think so.
All right, this one is El Rito Campground In-Stream Restoration Project. We're going back up to the Carson now, so. Go through this one. Okay. Our partners. So the partners, these ones are gonna be Elisa with Forest Service, Juliet Smith with Trout Unlimited, and then myself. So, as I said, this is at the El Rito Campground on the Carson National Forest, 4 miles north of El Rito. And that polygon there just kind of shows the outline and where El Rito is, and that's the project area. We're trying to figure out the bar on top, so. I can continue talking. So the Forest Service partnered with Trout Unlimited again and completed designs for this in-stream restoration project. It's about 1.7 river miles at the campground, and the anticipated construction date will be this fall, and again, construction should last about 2 months. So current conditions around the campground, it's a highly used area. Unfortunately, so there are Rio Grande cutthroat trout above the campground, a little bit further up, but the trout, they hit a thermal barrier pretty much when they get a little bit lower. So this is a dual purpose project. Not only is it going to be obviously for Rio Grande cutthroat trout, for this campsite, but also it's going to be sport fish for angling as well. Kind of give people the opportunity to do some fishing in this area. It's really pretty degraded. There's lack of pools. There's no, it's really wide. It's really shallow. Like I said, there's a lot of use on it. There's stream-based erosion. And then, as you can see here in this photo, there's a lack of riparian vegetation. There's no willows or anything like that. So that's the main goal of this project. So these are a snippet from the engineering designs on the right-hand side. It's kind of hard to see. I think I have a closer up picture further on. But the purpose, like I said, is to stop Rio Grande cutthroat trout, create trout shelter habitat, public access improvements. There are 2 crossings, stream crossings in the beginning of the campground and at the top of the campground. Reduce the width depth ratio, reduce stream-based erosion, and increase channel shading with native riparian vegetation. And you can see this work isn't going to encompass a lot of structures, so we'll kind of go into more depth in this subject. We'll kind of need,
Yeah, I
you
can try
can't
to
see
start.
me. So originally, this project was gonna be into 2 phases. The lower phase 1 and upper phase 2. However, when Game and Fish or the department wants to be involved in this is gonna allow us to complete the whole project at the same time and not break it up into 2 phases for funding purposes. To complete it at once. The top numbers are just kind of showing the number of structures. Gosh,
I know, it's really annoying.
yeah,
Can't figure it out.
I think the bottom line is that there's gonna be a lot of structures.
there's gonna be a lot of structures, yeah. There's plenty there. So, yeah,
Planting below pools and.
yeah, 370 willow poles. You can see, we have like, boulder clusters, rock veins, root wads. It's not gonna work.
I mean, Toe Rock says 60 water
Okay.
crossings.
Oh, you can see it on yours, I can
Yeah.
copy yours.
That is not what it looks like here, which is why it's.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so, 315 cubic yards of channel grading. We're gonna do 10 crossbeam weirs. We're gonna do 15 rock log veins, 36 boulder clusters, 3 root wad sections, and 28 rock sills. So the estimated cost that we're projecting is $500,000. This is for mobilization. Materials, creek improvements, the low water crossings, hand crews, and then of course admin and permitting. So. Yeah, hopefully, this restoration, like I said, is going to, provide, angling opportunities and trout habitat as well. So kind of two birds, one stone. I think that's it. Any questions on the project? Yeah,
Did I read correctly that you plan to do this in 2 months?
correct.
That sounds unrealistic for all this work.
Crews can move pretty fast.
So it's gonna be heavy equipment?
Yeah, heavy equipment.
Okay.
So of course, all the 404 permitting, the Army Corps gets involved, we get all that done. And then we'll work with Forest Service for NEPA as well.
As soon as the permits are in place, this project is very shovel ready.
Yeah, it's ready to go, because we already have the designs.
So what caused the low or the shallow pools and the bank degradation and stuff like that? Was it public access people?
Public access,
People are,
yeah, mostly people.
so as part of this project saying, are they working that into it so that people don't keep degrading it even
Correct.
after we do it?
Especially the road crossings, and then you'll see a lot up there is where just naturally folks have, go running down the bank, so they're creating this, they start the erosion, and then when you get a huge, storm, just, it has.
People are as bad as cattle.
Exactly, yeah, and so, by planting a lot of the willows and willow poles, hopefully the bank stabilization.
Anything about relocating campground areas or camping areas and moving them away from the stream?
I don't know about that. Yeah, as far as
I've
relocating
never
the
been there,
campgrounds.
so I don't know.
Yeah, because
if
they're
that's
pretty
an issue
established
or not.
campgrounds. Yeah, I don't think there's any plans to relocate the campgrounds.
Corey, I hear you say that the department was putting in substantial funds into this as well, to this 500,000, or did I hear that wrong?
No, we're projecting around 500,000. That's a safe number as far as for implementation. The Forest Service is providing. So I believe the whole project is more expensive. The whole project's probably around like $750 to $1 million. And so the original plan for the Forest Service was to implement like the first phase, and then they're gonna wait till we get more funding to do the second phase. So with our contribution to this, we can do the whole.
With the
region.
CAC contribution.
Correct, we could do it all at the same time. So the feds will be putting up the money for one of the phases.
Okay.
I do want to point out too as well, Cory, that this is part of a larger landscape project.
Yes.
Trout Unlimited applied for some river stewardship funds to implement the same prescription upstream, and then Amigos Bravos has a proposal to do the same prescription even further upstream at the closer to the headwaters. So in addition to this project, we're really contributing to a larger landscape scale of the same prescription along a very long portion of the El Rito. There, this is just like Cory was saying, was supposed to be phased out. But if this is a project that the UCAC members do prioritize, then the timing will work out such that Amigos Bravos will implement, Trout Unlimited will implement, and then we'll implement, and we can really shorten the implementation window down to a single, within a year, as opposed to multiple years.
Thank you.
I
So
see.
The other groups they're definitely gonna be doing the upper stream areas.
Yep.
It's all there, and that'll all be done in a year?
Over the course of like a year to year and a half. Yeah,
Cause it
I mean,
seems like,
obviously.
like to see that stuff come down the river.
Right.
And work that way instead of up the river.
Yeah, working with in-stream contractors, in my experience, the contractors tend to prefer to work downstream to upstream, that way they can control what happens upstream by what's happening downstream, so. The goal is that in a smaller window, we would like to see implementation from the headwaters all the way down through the campground area. And then, you know, depending on the success, there is potential to expand it even further down as well.
So in the 3 projects, this is 1.7 miles, so what would be the total miles?
Do you?
Don't remember the exact one. I think so.
I can give you that information. I
That'd be
can
great.
that.
You know, the longer the project, the better it's gonna be for stream temperature.
Yeah.
And all that.
Art Volmer, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself?
Okay, yeah, I was wondering how far upstream is the fish barrier, the cutthroat barrier?
It's about 4 miles, is it about 4 miles upstream? It's about 4 miles upstream.
So this section will have both, recreational Rio Grande cutthroat and what other species?
Yeah, Joe.
Oh, so no other trout. You said something about sport. fishing.
Sport fish for sport fishing Rio Grande
For
cutthroat.
only
Yeah,
Rio
yeah,
Grande
the
cutthroat.
sport fish aspect of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, and they had sampled a few Rio Grande cutthroat right above the campground, but it's pretty much as soon as they hit the campground, it's too low. Like, and so you can camp at the campground and then you would have to go further upstream to be able to fish.
Any other discussion from the CAC on this? If not, anybody from the public have a comment on it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Alyssa.
The total stream mileage is gonna be 4. We're gonna improve all the way up to the barrier. And then we may work past the barrier at some point. If Game and Fish, right now that barrier is functioning, but it needs a little work. So right now we're doing 4 miles to the barrier. And all of the NEPA is completed, and we are working on the permits for the lower end for the 404s right now as we speak.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Anybody else? Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Courtney. Sorry about the taskbar. I don't know.
No,
if
it's
we
okay.
can-
No, it's fine. You deal with it.
It like doesn't show up anywhere on my screen, so I can't.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
We can jump straight into it. Just sharing. I think I only have slide titles at the top, so it should be all right. Good to go.
I can't fix it, so I guess.
No, it works fine for me. I'm Brock and I'm gonna be presenting the Stewart Meadows implementation of Phase 1 project. It takes place on the Tres Piedras district of the Carson National Forest. And the project contacts for that are myself, Brock, and Nessa Rasmussen with the Forest Service. So a little overview of what we'll be talking about for the phase 1 implementation today is the location of where the project's at, a background of the area and previous work that's been done there, the current conditions, what our proposed actions are, the benefits we expect to see from that to the landscape, and the benefits that we expect to see from that to the wildlife. So this is we'll start on the left with the zoomed out. Tres Piedras is right up there. It's just south of the Colorado border, just to the west of San Antonio Mountain, just to the south of there. So as we zoom in a little bit, you can see San Antonio Mountain right here. You can drive in past the base of it and then come up to here where the Stewart Meadows project area is. And then to zoom in on that dot, this is the reach where the phase 1 implementation is going to happen. There's a road that crosses the Stewart Meadows Creek, the creek that goes through there. And the implementation phase that we're discussing today that Game and Fish is asking Habitat Stamp funds for is only the upstream reach above where the road passes over. That's what we were calling phase 1 of this project. So a little background in the area. The Stewart Meadows area is acquired by the Carson National Forest in 1973 with some funds designated for recreation, fish and wildlife, viewing, angling, bird watching, waterfowl hunting, wildlife benefits specifically. We can go next. So then in the 1980s, there was some restoration that occurred in the area, with the main focus being to utilize a water right that came with the land. There was some, Bill Zedike helped design some structures, and there was some wetland restoration, implementation, prairie pothole type wetland features created to utilize that water right and maintain ownership of that water right, and to create some waterfowl habitat. That was all downstream of that bridge that I talked about. So not in the area that we will be working for this. Oh, we can go next. Oh, yeah. We'll be moving on in just a second.
How is that wetlands doing now?
They look really good. There's waterfowl that are using them. And then we'll touch on them a little bit later. There's project design in the works right now for updating that and working on it. There's some head gates from the 80s that are maybe could use some improvement. So we're looking at that for years down the way. But they are functioning well. There may be an opportunity to get more out of them in the future. All right, so moving on, in 2021, we can see these blue lines on the map are 6 miles of old wood top rail fence that was used to keep livestock out of this area because the funds that it was bought with stipulated that it was for recreation and wildlife. So the livestock was never supposed to be in there. And that fence functioned all right, but in 2021, with Habitat funds, it was replaced with a pipe and cable fence that has continued functioning fantastic to this day. You can actually see the difference from aerial imagery of what the grass and vegetation looks like leading up to that, and then what it looks like inside. Unfortunately, that was in a time before the uptick in pipe prices, so that was a lot more feasible back then, but long story short, it's functioning excellent today. in the interior, looks much better. So then in 2022, with outside department funds, we got engineering designs done for a phase 1 and phase 2 of riparian restoration in Stewart Meadows within that pipe fence. And then it is phase 1 of that work that I am presenting on for implementation funds today. And then finally, as I briefly alluded to, right now there is a phase 3, which is that wetlands downstream of the bridge. There are some engineering designs being worked on and finalized right now for potential restoration work that could improve those wetlands and utilize that water right to benefit wildlife even more. That's all just background of what's going on in this area. So the current conditions of Stewart Meadows in the phase 1 upstream of the bridge is that there are high sediment loads. Those are happening partly because of the type of the soil and the substrate conditions of this area. They're already a highly erodible substrate. And as was mentioned, there's private land directly upstream of this stretch with some somewhat intense cattle operations. And so there is sediment that comes out of that, contributing to the high sediment loads in this system. The river reach in this is the project area upstream of here is slightly to moderately entrenched, depending on what part you're looking at. This area is a critical sediment buffer for downstream reaches of the Rio San Antonio, which is the river that runs through here. And also it is isolated from its historic floodplain, from its channel connected wetlands and from backwater habitat. We can see here where the stream goes through, that's where that slightly to moderately entrenched channel prevents it, except from extremely high flows, from reaching this greater floodplain that you can kind of see the outline of. There's a risk of bank erosion and down cutting because of the highly erosive soils. But there is an active beaver population that right around here, you can see some back channel flooding from that beaver dam. And there's active beaver, they move around, the dams blow out, they move, they make a new one, but there's active beaver in this area. So the proposed actions from those engineering designs that have been completed in the upstream of the bridge, phase 1, is it's a mile reach of the Rio San Antonio. They'll be constructing earthen channel plugs that redirect water flow to re-wet the historic floodplain. They'll be doing some channel shaping that will spread out the runoff water from those channel plugs. And there'll be the creation of shallow burrow areas that enhance the off-channel wetlands. So dotted line is where the stream currently is, but with these earthen plugs and then the lead out channels will spread water depending on the flow up to re-wet this entire area. And then here in the engineering design, we're seeing a cross section. This is where the stream currently flows, but will help push it out and spread that out over the floodplain, which helps with the high sediment loads because you spread the water out, you slow it down, that sediment can actually become a tool to help aggregate and build the floodplain up, create more sediment buffers and areas where plants can grow, and then you trap more, and then you aggregate, and then you get more floodplain reconnection. So those are the proposed actions, and some of what they'll lead to. The benefits, which I started to get into, are reconnecting the floodplain with side channels and backwater habitats, redistributing the flood energy across the sediment basin so that it's not picking up more sediment to take downstream from here. It's actually slowing down and dropping sediment out. It'll increase overbank flow at lower flood stages, so we're getting more wetted land. It will accelerate floodplain development. That's the dropping the sediment out as it moves through this area to aggregate the floodplain. It'll improve water quality by increasing shading. The sediment drops out. There's more area for vegetation growth. You get more shading, and it will help reduce downstream sediment loads. It'll also increase the growth and footprint of riparian vegetation in this area, which helps with shading. And then in kind of a spiraling effect, helps filter out more of the sediment that's in the water. We can go to the next. So for wildlife, this helps increase the water quality and the quality of waterfowl habitat in those downstream wetlands. In addition to this specific part, it increases the resiliency of the water on the landscape for ungulates. There's deer that move through here and utilize this as a water source. They also utilize the thick vegetation for bedding and for fawning. Increases browse and cover for deer and elk. It's thermal cover and forage and predator cover. It expands the opportunity for this beaver population. So increases their food source and their structural needs for creating dams, which they help, they're the best little engineers, they help spread it out and contribute towards our goals. And it will also help to increase downstream water quality for fish and wildlife species. So then in a kind of a overall encapsulation review of this, the phase one will continue a decades-long legacy of restoration in this area that has been made possible through diverse partnerships. Troutland Limited has contributed to this. Other funders have helped. This is many 5, 6, a dozen people that have contributed to this over the past 6 decades. The compliance, archaeology, natural heritage, 404 permitting, design work, it's all completed. This is ready to implement. We've in communication with the Forest Service and the contractor that did the designs and would implement the designs. We are ready to implement this in spring of 26. The total implementation cost is $435,000 for phase one. And I think that is the end of my presentation. So, yeah, I think we open it up to CAC questions and comments first.
Could you talk about the fish populations in that area? And
I want to make, this is a wildlife project, riparian, but there are Rio Grande cutthroat trout, eDNA has been seen in this area. Hence part of why Troutland Limited has been involved in this area and in much further tributary work upstream a couple years ago. We did some in the upper Rio San Antonio, some in-stream channel construction, floodplain wetting that was more geared towards fish. And Troutland Limited has been funding 2 more years of work after that in that same upper reach. So there is some fish tangential nexus. It would be Rio Grande cutthroat, and then our native fisheries that exist in the north. Corey, help me out. That's chub and sucker. Chub and sucker in that watershed.
Browns.
Yeah.
What's the source of the San Antonio? Where does it come out of? What are the headwaters? It doesn't come out of Cruces Basin, does it?
No.
That flows the other way, so.
Cruces Basin goes with Los Pinos.
There's several tributaries, but the main one is San Antonio Creek,
I guess San Antonio Creek is the main one.
but Nutrius feeds in there.
It's
Bobby.
fairly up in the watershed.
Are antelope using this area too?
They use the area, yeah, they do. When I go to this project site, I see them further south and further east, south of, but it's right in
They're
there.
not coming down in there though, that you know?
I've never seen personally antelope running through. I think it's a little thick for them in there with the willows and the cottonwoods growing, but I see them on the plains and range due south of the project area.
Being sneaky.
Yeah.
I think there's pretty extensive collar data up there, and pronghorn aren't showing up right there, but all around it. on their migratory corridor.
Was there any other monies that was going in from other places for this area? Or are we solely the ones funding it?
For this implementation, we would be the ones funding it, yes. Forest Service has work to do prior work in the area. And they funded all of the compliance for archaeology surveys to get our ground disturbing work. They provided the capacity and funding to do all of those surveys.
For birds, what are we talking are using it?
I could say waterfowl generally, when I go there, ducks fly off. I haven't put the binos right, I'd imagine mallards. And I'm not sure if it's in flycatcher zone as far as songbirds go.
So the migration of birds are, it's being used by migration routes, though, right?
Oh, yes, certainly migration routes for
All different
waterfowl.
routes.
There's some, it's not a popular spot, but someone in the Forest Service office likes to hunt waterfowl there, so it's utilized enough that there's recreational opportunity for waterfowl.
Anybody else online have anything on this one?
David, like,
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Yes, very good project. Just a couple comments, and maybe just something for proponents, haven't been on the CAC before, but when you come asking for big pots of money, make sure that you have all the history of expenditures, because it's a lot easier to allocate funds if we can see that we're matching a lot of other partners' expenditures before or occurring at the same time. It wasn't in Brock's presentation here online, but I had pulled up all the presentations that were posted on the website. And there was a very detailed breakdown for this project of the expenses, which was absolutely outstanding. But there was one item in there that I know it's beyond probably you agencies, people's control, that gave me some heartburn, and that was $27,000 in gross receipts taxes that was going to have to be paid on this project. And for those of you that don't know, usually even the federal agencies have to pay gross receipts tax on labor on project work. So I don't know if there's a way to use other funds, because I really like CHSP funds used strictly for on-the-ground implementation. That was my comments. Good project, though.
Okay, thanks, Dave. All right. Oh, yes, Bob.
At the very end of that online descriptions project, you talk about Colorado blue spruce being used for shade.
Yes, sir, and I believe you're referencing the conceptual designs for phase 2 of this project and the proposed actions. There was another thing on the online resources that were the full engineering designs for phase 1 and phase 2. And in phase 2, in the proposed approach, it talks about shading with cottonwoods, Colorado blue spruce, or other suitable conifer species. But that does not have to do with phase 1 implementation. That is the reach below the bridge. And that would be looked at more in detail in future years if phase 2 implementation was sought after.
Why do you plant blue spruce along a river?
I would have to consult the engineer that came up with the engineering designs.
Well, someone needs to. Anybody around here that knows about, you don't put conifers in the damn river. I mean, you're gonna have a project tomorrow, we're talking about getting rid of conifers along the Canadian River. So cottonwoods, willows, yeah.
There's a couple small portions in that Stewart Meadows area that are upland. You could call them upland. So I'm wondering if they were presenting that as an option for there, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they really want to take this time.
All right. Thank you, Brock.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, since we're ahead of schedule, we'll squeeze one more in here. Shorten the day tomorrow for sure.
You know, for that anniversary celebration.
Yes. So, yeah, the upstream reach, it's a square, and the downstream reach has a cubic ball. And it uses that on the north side. And then there's cross check fencing that works off the cubic ball, it's completely too soon. Oh, jeez. So, you know, hours and crossings.
Still there. Tried something different, but it's still there.
That's so weird. And you can't click on it and move it. What's on the move tab? Oh, you don't even see it.
Right.
So you can't do anything.
It's fine.
Yeah.
No, I can just do it. It's all. Thank you though, Terry.
Like, minimize that screen. And then go down to. Maybe, yeah. Oh, hover over that.
Mary.
No, and then it'll let you go to, you move that. Maybe go to those.
Last time I was there, it was there. Or can't go to those, everybody.
Can you like, move it on there? No?
Oh, yeah. Well, Mary.
Or maybe go here.
Oh, definitely. Your kids will take pictures of them.
Thank you. Okay, I'm doing this one. So I'll just continue driving because I'm scared about how vulnerable this whole system seems to be. Not that I'm doing a great job, but.
You got a wonderful story. There's nobody else here that can do it.
Yeah. So I'm a transplant to New Mexico, and I think that it is one of our nation's gems, really, when it comes to landscape diversity, outdoor recreational opportunity, and connection to nature. It's a gem. It flies under the radar though, and I think folks from outside of New Mexico, when they envision our state, are probably thinking about our desert habitats that get some attention, or maybe envisioning a landscape like in Breaking Bad, unfortunately. But actually 1/3 of New Mexico is forest, technically. And within that, we have millions of acres of frequent fire adapted forest. And so I'd like to talk to you today about funding some work to contribute to forest restoration in New Mexico. So this proposal targets restoration on the Santa Fe, Carson, and Cibola National Forests. Fortunately, there's many people in our state that have been committed to forest health, longevity, and sustainability, whether it be federal or state agencies. NGOs play a big role here, private landowners, business owners, among others. So the work is really endless. There's a lot of commitment to it, and we're bringing it forward because of the value it has for wildlife, and as a wildlife agency, and I think as wildlife conservationists, it's important for us to demonstrate a commitment to it too. This slide will look familiar. I stole it from our presentation last year, and you'll notice this is structured similar to that prescribed fire, multi-force prescribed fire presentation. This is obviously different, but we're looking to fund the piece that is necessary to getting that done. So a loss of natural fire regimes and fire adapted forests has decreased forest health and resiliency, coinciding with increased risk of catastrophic wildfire. This limits habitat quality and threatens their long-term presence. The goal here is to thin forest units for fuels preparation to facilitate prescribed fire or managed wildfire down the road, ultimately shifting forest wildlife habitat to a more natural state. Again, you saw this slide last year, but it's pretty powerful and impactful in my opinion, because it's showing a photo point comparison of the exact same locations 70 years apart. And this is a visual of what we're trying to address with unnaturally dense stands of forest, the overcrowding leading to competition for resources within the trees in that stand, making them more susceptible to drought, disease, and other stressors, limiting the value of that understory for wildlife in terms of forage production and wildlife movement. And probably most importantly, the risk it presents for catastrophic wildfire with complete stand loss or even just stand type conversion and the loss of that habitat for wildlife. So tipping these forests back to their natural, even age, more open stands is going to be extremely valuable for the longevity of those forests and the sustainability of all the wildlife that use them. Fuels preparation plans have been collaboratively generated for multiple forests. So we said the same thing last year. So we have these plans we've worked on for prescribed fire with these 3 forests, and coinciding with that, we have these plans for fuels. In that development, numerous units have been identified within each forest. So this is aimed at a landscape approach, tackling a bunch of acres across these forests that meet both agency objectives. So rise to the top of the list for Forest Service concerns, but at the end of the day, present the best value for wildlife too. And I do want to say that these fuel prep items are not only important for prescribed fire, but their presence can be helpful in managing wildfire when conditions are right for that too. So across these, within this proposal, what do we expect to fund? There are a variety of treatments used in fuel prep work, and this includes thinning with lop and scatter, pile building to create fuel breaks, sometimes machine work, mastication, chipping, fire line creation by hand or by machine. And so all of these various methods are basically on the menu across these 3 forests. So this map is depicting some of the units that would be available. There's probably a few more that could come online within the tenure of we technically have a few years to spend the money, so within that time frame. But this is what's on deck right now for the most part, and this money would not be able to accomplish all of this. Depending on unit size and technical need within the treatment type, it may just cover 2 or 3. But I did want to paint the picture that this is the overall plan for where the thinning work is targeted to get done. And really, I mean, it's kind of an ongoing need for the most part. Ideally, we're gonna get to a place where fire is our primary tool and we don't necessarily have to be funding fuel breaks all the time and using beneficial fire will be common enough that we'll kind of get ahead of the curve a little bit. But I kind of see there being a need in short-term future, I guess, for sure. So here's just an example of one of the methods. This photo on the left we took last year on a fuel break project of the Santa Fe. And so in constructing these fuel breaks, the first step is to have contractors get in there and cut a bunch of trees, basically pile up what's been cut as well as some of the existing down debris. Goal being to gather up a bunch of the fuel that would contribute to really severity on the fire and getting it to a place where it can be burned, ideally in the winter time, and kind of create this buffer from which Forest Service can manage prescribed fire or wildfire and create this wide fuel break where that fire is going to slow down. It's an access point for them to get into to be able to do their work. And the photo on the right is just to demonstrate that we're doing this thinning work with the point to follow it up with the fire. So again, we're not trying to fund fire, but that's the end goal. And this thinning fuels prep is an absolutely essential step to getting there. Once we can get fire back on the landscape, you all know the benefits of that. We'll reinvigorate the understory, we'll clear out younger trees, open up the canopy, limb up the bottoms of some of those more mature trees to keep them from getting torched, and hopefully limit the risk of catastrophic fire and complete stand loss. So what we're asking for here is $250,000 to contribute to these ongoing efforts across these 3 forests, setting them up for fire and bringing these valuable wildlife habitats back to their more natural condition. That's it. Yeah, Ron.
What were the decision criteria for choosing the blue polygons that we were showing?
Yeah, so these plans were actually developed before I was part of the program. So I wasn't part of the conversation, but that said, from the Forest Service perspective, they were priorities based on their rotation of prescribed fire and their evaluation of where fire was needed. Backing up to where the fuel prep needs to be done in order to set it up for that. And then from our perspective, I mean, for the most part, we try to target back 40 stuff. So we were looking to not be in WUI, is probably the main filter, I guess.
There's a lot of other funding sources that'll meet that need.
Right.
That HSP could actually do some of that remote areas.
Yeah, good point. Yep.
Could you talk a little bit about the fire line aspect of this? I don't think in previous, when we've had these kind of projects, that hasn't been spun out individually.
Yeah, so since I'm not a practitioner, I'm not going to be the best. I don't have somebody here to cover that, but what it will mean if it's a hand fire line, it's basically, yeah, and you can add to this, Mark, but if it's a hand fire line, it's going to be digging down to bare mineral to basically create this strip where they don't want fire to skip over. And then the mechanical ones are much wider. And so this isn't necessarily ubiquitous across each of the thinning units shown on there. It's just chosen based on the fuels planners preference in how to approach the units they need to prep for fire in that particular landscape. I don't know. Mark, you're a fire guy. Do you have anything to add?
No, I guess it depends on the whatever particular projects you got going, whether those need to be hand line or something mechanical or just those small hand lines that you can burn off of for control
Sure.
purposes, so.
They're often done in conjunction with other treatments, right? So there's the hand line and lop and scatter around it to create a fuel break.
One other quick question, Caitlin, is why is just these three forests, like the Lincoln, the Gila, not included in part of this?
Yeah, I'm working on getting with the Lincoln on something that's just, we don't have the plans and agreements there yet.
I'm just curious, so just the threes.
Yeah, we've certainly reached out to Lincoln and Gila, coming forward with this model, because that's where we got it started. And so we're hopeful that we can get something going in those places too. It's just not there yet.
Is this just for USFS or is it BLM, then USFS, or is it?
This is just Forest Service.
Okay.
The stuff that's not masticated, is it always just piled up in burn piles? Is there any commercial value or value for wood gathering in any of this?
Yeah, in some places, we're usually not tapped on for help when they can use it for commercial sale. But that's implemented in other places.
There's a bunch of burn piles in Hamus that people took all the big stuff off of it. It's just a pile of slash and they took all of it. They're pretty picked apart informally, just like ants.
Art, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, given some of the changing views of the current administration on harvesting more wood out of our national forests, are any of these areas possibly identified as being priorities for going in there and cutting wood, in which case, why would we want to go in there?
Yeah, not to my knowledge. Again, we put these plans together before the administration changed, so I guess it's dynamic. But that almost speaks to why it's kind of good to have this as flexible as it is. If some of those units that they have online would be better suited toward that, we can make that pivot and not work on those, because this money won't cover it all. Yeah, so I do appreciate that point, and we'll be thinking about that as we're identifying what we actually spend money on. Anything else? Any other discussion? Anybody from public have a comment on this? Yes, Dave. You're still muted, Dave.
Yep, it just popped up. Okay, now you can hear me. Anyway, as I was just fixing to say, I think everybody knows how heavily involved I was with fire during my career here in the state with BLM, Forest Service, both. Thinnings are great. I liked at one time the HSP program didn't want to fund fire line thinnings or anything close to WUIs. I think we're at the point where we almost have to prioritize those now so that we can burn out away from those in the other areas for wildlife habitat. But there are some things, this is almost like the grazing issue here. We're not getting to the root of the problem, and you've heard me before at these meetings tell the agencies you're not going to cut your way out of this fire conundrum because the acreage size is just simply not large enough. It's not, you can't do it at a landscape scale. We can't afford it. And you can't have the time. Fire's got to be the tool. And as much as people cringe, a lot of country, you're going to have to let it burn. The primary problem still today is that federal agencies put out the overwhelming majority of natural fire starts. I mean, yesterday's SITRET report from the Turkey Feather and the Gila, even the Gila, one of the most progressive fire forests in the Southwest, suppressed 5 natural lightning starts yesterday in the Gila wilderness. We're chasing the proverbial dog chasing its tail deal here. We're not getting at the root of the problem. I don't know what to tell you. The people I've worked with that were just starting out, I'm very disappointed in because they're not being aggressive enough. You folks in Albuquerque, enjoy the Sandias right now, because it's going to happen one day. It's going to be gone. And it's going to be gone because too many natural fires have been suppressed and continue to be suppressed. So, I mean, these thinning projects are great, but at a landscape scale, they're just not going to get us to where we need to be. And that's all the comments I have.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, we hope that through doing these, it sets up prescribed fire that otherwise wouldn't be taking place and making, you know, hundreds of acres of on the ground work turn into thousands of acres. But yes, I hear your point about fire being the tool, the necessary tool.
So is a game and fish a big part of where these breaks and thinning and stuff would be done? Or are you leaving it up to the USFS to determine it?
Oh, you mean coming down to like, we have this menu that we've mutually agreed on, and then how do we pick?
Yeah, we're not just letting the USFS. do
No,
what they
we
want.
work together on that because we've already have these agreements that frame mutual objectives. So at the end of the day, we both have already agreed that these are all important to get done. That said, knowing we may not be able to get them all done, we're both at the table to figure out what to do next.
Yeah, cause like Mount Taylor, that's a good example of picking the right spots to thin and not, you know, to get ready for the whole burn. When is that gonna be happening up there?
This fall, hopefully. Okay, well, I think discussion on that's wrapped up. We're a little bit ahead of schedule. I think we will entertain some general public comment if anybody has some of that before we break for the day. Is there anybody with? I know we provided opportunity throughout, so not too surprised. We don't have anything. All right. With that, I think we'll plan to see everybody back here at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow.
Okay.
And thanks everyone who did the presentation and for your participation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, take care.
Thanks.